Welcome to Command Control Power, the longest-running Apple consulting podcast. This is Joe, your host and co-founder. For over 10 years, we've produced weekly episodes featuring epic tales of tech support and troubleshooting, discussions about managing our clients and businesses, and interviews with colleagues and vendors. Our weekly podcast blends thought-provoking discussions on hot tech topics with solutions and anecdotes from the field. Plus, rediscover hidden gems here on the public feed, curated from our expansive archive of over 500 classic episodes. For our pro listeners, we offer Patreon-exclusive shows. This private podcast feed is tailor-made for IT professionals looking for advice and guidance on the more challenging aspects of running your practice, working with your clients and employees, and managing your fleets of devices. For a modest monthly contribution, you'll unlock a world of deeper Apple expertise, meaningful connections, and a shared passion for Apple technology. Simply visit commandcontrolpower.com and click support. You can preview the latest episodes and special content there, and you can instantly subscribe to the weekly patron-only episodes right in your favorite podcast app. Level up your consulting journey with the latest episodes, the most candid conversations, bonus features, and more. Join us on Patreon. And now on to the show. Welcome to another episode of Command Control Power. We have just a one-on-one show here with me and Jerry. Jerry, yeah, good to see you there with
new background, new show.
Nice.
Actually, I changed the backgrounds. Just it helps me keep track when I'm doing
editing,
clerical work in the background. Yes, sir.
Clerical work. Nice. Yeah, we can talk about a few different things here. One thing I was thinking of bringing up was just some of the recent iOS changes. iOS 18, not that recent, obviously, anymore, but I still deal with it with clients because when I'm guiding them on something, it's two different worlds now. Something as simple as the settings app, for example. You're either saying, okay, go to settings and look for passwords. Okay, then look for the passwords app. Leave settings and look for the passwords app. Or in settings, okay, go to tap on your name, tap on iCloud. Do you see show all? No. Okay. Do you see all? Okay. It's just little changes in there that I find frustrating. Also, I get that Apple moved the various settings for individual apps to the apps section of settings. So it's no longer one massive scrolling list all the way to the bottom. But I think it would make more sense to have the native apps on the first screen. Like those are the ones I'm usually walking people through finding. And so I'm like, go to messages. Okay. It's not there. Go to apps and then scroll to messages. I have dozens and dozens of apps on my iPhone. For me, that's a long scroll. Now I'm telling people just search. So we're at this system settings of Ventura when we started to just have to search for every setting. For me, I'm finding that's happening now with the iPhone, mostly when I'm guiding clients, but some of it seems arbitrary is my main point, and I can learn to get along with these changes, but I don't know. Have those caused those kinds of issues for you at all, Jerry?
As you were talking, it would be really nice if we could even, and I don't think we'll ever see it, even like a customizable hot list where you could make like almost a little dashboard and you could add things that you frequently would go to. Yeah, but hands down, Mac or iOS, I'm doing a search with clients. I'm never asking them to scroll. And for the most part, I won't even approach a remote session unless I'm using Splashtop to get on their phone or they've upgraded to Sequoia and I could see the phone because it's next to impossible. You're dealing with people, if it's residential work, who are not experienced at all in working in the settings app, and it's diminishing returns. Unless, like you said, Joe, you had 4 iPhones on your desk. One's like the OS 14, iOS, and then you might be able to get there with them for the win, but it's a colossal waste of time. And it's frustrating.
Why do they make these changes? Is it getting better? To me, it opens up this question overall about how the nature of technology is these changes happen all the time. There's incremental changes that happen every 0.01 update or 0.1 update. And then there's the changes that happen with the major version updates. But it's all changing all the time, whether it's an app or native first-party software. And yes, they're introducing new features. Yes, there are benefits. I'm actually looking forward to the Apple Intelligence features that are now in the second round of beta. It's a lot of it. I'm not a Luddite in that sense, but what I wish for is like more stability in just the basic functionality of the device. Like when something works, I feel like I'm just saying things that the previous generation said about the previous generation of tech. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? Why are they keep tweaking the location of different settings or changing things in these subtle ways? But also not just the changes for change's sake, but also the fact that by changing something, sometimes things break. And then it's frustrating just to use the basic everyday functionality. I can't think of any examples that come to mind other than just my AirPods do weird things sometimes. It's something was playing like a podcast, a notification came in, and you get that weird volume shift sometimes that happen to you where like suddenly it's like playing, it's like the notification's really loud or something. And then the podcast doesn't resume playing. And it's, okay, so it's like it's supposed to be helping you by announcing it in your ear, and then it goes back to what it was doing. But instead, I'm like, now I'm going to fish my phone out or find the stem of my AirPod. These are not big deals, but it's just fine. I find that it's frustrating when the nature of technology is change. It's always changing, and we get very like short periods of time where everything works and it's stable. And then until, okay, next round of betas coming out, and here we go again.
I think it even goes beyond like people use as an excuse, every year they have to come out with new stuff. And when they make their keynote, they want to say like, we've got 100 new features or whatever. They probably don't count them anymore. But I think it's beyond that. I think it has to do with our expectations are so much higher for what these devices can do. And they're so nuanced and they're so niche, some of the requests, that Apple's, we could do that. And so they build another layer of settings, another level down or multiple levels down to achieve these things. So it's all achievable. I just met the other day with a gentleman. He's 91 years old. He's macular degeneration. And we're just trying to help the contrast. And there's so many different nested places you could go to increase those settings. And so nothing is straightforward anymore. And there's third-party apps that can do this. And so there's definitely different ways and different solutions. And I'm not sure I'm making any sense here, but I think that we just expect so much more from these devices. So it's beyond Apple just trying to build in new features. We're to blame because we're reaching out to Apple either internally or people are writing to Apple and they're like, you need to do this, we need to do that. And then of course, everything is done with teams, right? And so your teams don't maybe coalesce till maybe months before the beta releases. And then it's how do you take the glue and stick all this stuff together? So I'm not making excuses for Apple. I just think it's not going to get better. I think it's only going to get worse.
Exactly. It is an industry-wide thing because like you're describing, maybe Android releases a feature and Apple feels like they have to do it. Certainly some of it is the keynote thing you mentioned. It's not all that, like you said. And some of it is also the shareholders that Apple is beholden to get on the bus of this AI revolution that's happening. And if Apple doesn't say the word AI 6 times in a keynote in the next 6 months, then the stock is going to tank or whatever the case may be. So they do have to do that. And of course, I'm glad they are. I'm glad a lot of the way they're implementing it, of course, it's the Apple way. It's with privacy in mind and it's native on device and their processors can handle it really well and all that. But so these are good things, but like they're compelled to do some of this by the larger industry and by the stockholders. Can't we just have certain things be more stable over a longer period of time? Like, why do we have to go through this cycle? I guess I don't know, would you say if you wait to the 0.1 of the new iOS, then it should be stable until through the end of that cycle, until the next version comes out, and you wait for the 0.1 of that, and maybe things will be a little bit more refined if you do wait. Because I wait on the Mac, I don't wait on the iPhone. Maybe that's the difference.
Yeah, in one breath, you were talking about stability, and I didn't really address that. But in the other side of the talking point that you were bringing up, I think you're also talking about how nuanced everything is.
Yeah,
so
like
I
you
don't
said,
think
with the different screens for the same feature, or different ways of achieving the same goal.
So I just don't even think those types of things are going to smooth out. They're just everything's going to just be more granular. But in terms of interoperability and the handoff that's happening with the AirPods going from the phone on the phone, and then you go back to YouTube and there might be some malfeasance there. But
yeah,
for the most part, always dazzled by the fact that I could pick up the iPhone and here we are having a conversation, and I could start doing something there, and it automatically knows that I'm working on the iPhone now. That amazes me. So for the most part, I think AirPods are pretty smooth.
No major complaints. I just use them all day long, so maybe I'm seeing more of those types of like weird little issues. And again, it's a new, like, it's an early iOS release, and so I probably have to wait a month or two until all those little tiny bugs are worked out. I don't know. I think I also feel like I used to be able to be more of an expert in Mac and iPhone. And if I'm out somewhere talking to friends and they say, oh, how do I do such and such? I'm the expert. I should be able to provide an answer, I would hope personally, and they may expect it. And I'm finding more and more like, I don't know, I think it's settings and then accessibility, or maybe it's general, or just search for whatever. And then like you're describing, there might be two different ways of addressing the same thing. And if you do it here, then I don't know, AirPods with the transparency and conversation boost and different features. There's just so many little screens, and it's just impossible to be an expert. Like I think it once was more possible to be more of an expert with this stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. We're suffering there with you, Joe.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're feeling your pain.
I read an article that was supposed to address this. It was this Bloomberg article a couple of weeks ago. It said Apple's moving away from its annual product upgrade cycle. And I thought, wow, this is going to be some big news drop that they're not going to release an iPhone every year, or they're not going to release a new macOS every year. I read the article. I really couldn't take away. It was just hemming and hawing about all this same stuff we've been talking about. I don't need them to release a new macOS every year. Do you feel like, you install it at the early days and all, and there are usually some nice new features, but will we ever get to the point where we don't really need a brand new macOS version that is going to fundamentally change different features under the hood or every year? And same question about iOS. Do we need a new iOS every year? If we get a new iPhone hardware every year, do we need a new major iOS version? Who does that benefit?
You sound a little complaining now.
I guess I am. It's a philosophical thing. I haven't quite been able to put my finger on it over the years, but I just want more stability and less arbitrary change. That said, I want to give Apple credit because the fact that they could release the Vision Pro with a brand new native with full integration in terms of like handoff and continuity and things like that, without having to invent all those features. They've already invented continuity and handoff, and they've already standardized their processor architecture across their different platforms so that they can port code between them. They've already created these even like development frameworks to be able to take some of the code you're using to develop an app on one platform and use it. You can run an iPad app on a Vision Pro or a Mac, so there's a lot of portability and cross-platform compatibility in the Apple ecosystem that demonstrates just how much they've done with the foundational layer of all this stuff. So I am very impressed with that, but it's just that these new features that come out and the little tweaks they make to existing features always seem to just make things feel slightly less stable to the point where I'm a little frustrated with my device half the time, until we get to that stability again.
What if all the listeners contributed in Sam and we get you one of those phones with the big buttons? Would that be better for you?
I looked this up, actually. I should have known this, where a client, have you had this question before about what to do with somebody who wants a big button like iPhone, basically? There's cognitive decline, there's that kind of thing. And what do you tell them? What's the kind of solution for the big button iPhone? There's solutions for that built in.
No.
I'm trying to search my notes.
There's an app for that.
This is the cognitive accessibility features, okay? So this is under the I should have known this because the client asked and I was like, well, we could zoom the whole screen in, but that doesn't really, I started to respond in a totally inaccurate way before I actually looked into it. I didn't send the response, thankfully, but I was like, let me actually research this first before I tell them from authority, that this can't be done. This is the request. Hi, would it be possible to hire you guys for my ex-husband who we've now put in memory care? I know there are ways to make his main screen on his iPhone extremely accessible with just a few large buttons, like for messages, mail, and phone or something. Do you know anything about doing elder accessibility like that, and could you help? Very good request. In fact, she even indicated what some of these features were that I should have known. And I was thinking, how would I do that? I would change the screen zoom to make everything really big. I'd change the home screen to just have just the icons in it that I want and move everything to another screen. No, there's actually a built-in method of doing this. So Apple has this great article, of course, about how to get started with accessibility features on iPhone. We all know about accessibility features, but this is the getting started for these. They take you through vision, mobility, etc., hearing, speech, and then you get to cognitive. And if you go, so cognitive is one of these more fundamental kind of changes. The other ones we know about from some things we might like to do, like to be able to increase the text size or bold or whatever. But this is a more like fundamental change. So the cognitive accessibility features, then they link to a page all about this, where you can keep the iPhone simple, as they put it. You can allow only certain apps, and you can have just those apps be on the main screen. So I'm not talking about just zooming in like your existing home screen. It's a new version of the home screen that has like very large buttons with white background, with the icon and very large icon, and then large text below it what the thing is. For example, the phone app is labeled calls. Camera app, camera, photos. So those are the examples they give. Or instead of that button view, you can have a list of apps that is scrollable. So it's, again, very simple. It's just a list of whatever apps you want them to have. And it has the icon and the name of the app, and it's on a white background. So it's very easy to read as well. In addition, different apps have assistive access for that specific app as well. So for example, like the camera app has a button that just says take photo, and there's another button that says back. So it could not be more simpler. Some of these are like appealing to me for all the complaints I was just making. Let's go back to their easy early days where we take out all these extra features that trip people up. Oh, how did I get this? I'm locked into some screen that no one's ever seen before, and I can't understand what they're seeing on the phone. If we have implemented this accessibility feature, this cognitive accessibility feature up front, they basically can't get into these edge case, corner case, weird scenarios where they're stuck and you don't know how to help them. It's very simplified. Basically, the point here is to let people know that this is out there, that cognitive accessibility features can be really powerful for someone with this kind of disability.
And do you know when that was actually implemented, this new GUI, let's call it? You know?
Yeah, so what we said in this case was they were in Manhattan, so we would need to go there. I said we're happy to go there and do this, although I said someone will need to be there who is what Apple calls a trusted supporter. So this is like a family member or caregiver. So I said to this client, Apple recommends that you have what's called a trusted supporter who's a family member. I'm implying you might want to be that person, or is there someone there that can help your ex-husband to be that trusted supporter who would be involved in the initial setup, who can then help turn these features off, et cetera, like navigate how this works. Also, they probably should have familiarity with it because it's going to look different than their own iPhone. And so they should know how this works. So if you want to have someone go there, like we could guide you through doing this remotely rather than, I'm not sure where it left off. I also said, here's Apple's info. Maybe you can just dive right in because it's pretty straightforward once you know where to look. Which is, again, the point of bringing awareness to this on the show is that these features are out there. So, yeah, cognitive accessibility.
Right. Is this new to the most recent iOS, or was this in the previous iteration?
So this is, let me go back and see if there's a link here. I think it was iOS 17. So Apple's user guide shows this in iOS 17 and iOS 18. So those are the only two versions I think that support this.
So we should have known this, Joe.
Since last year. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Where's Sam? We'll blame it on Sam because Sam's Mr.
Sam,
Apple.
He's the one we look to on this. Exactly.
And he should have told us about this on a show.
That's right.
Because he probably trained people on this.
Yes.
So we'll blame.
I don't know. Was this on the test? I don't remember this on the test. So that's my.
No, it wasn't on the test.
Okay.
We'll have a new segment called "Blame the Trainer."
Exactly.
Instead of train the trainer, blame the trainer.
Blame the trainer. There you go. Yeah. I love it. Yeah.
Sam. Nice. All right. We'll have to roast him next time we have him on.
That's right. I'm sure we will.
If he decides to join us sometime soon.
So
if he's traveling the world, probably.
Yeah. If he gets back safely on plan, exactly.
He's doing some extra campaigning, and we won't say for what side, but
not for what side. Yeah, exactly.
As we record this, as you watch this, of course, we're going to have a new president.
We hope so.
Unless there's a complete insurrection that we've pre-taped and we don't really know about. And you may be watching this from a bunker somewhere.
That's right. That's right.
and it may be
come to
in
that.
Canada. Maybe in Canada, you might be watching this.
You can get the show anywhere.
Yeah.
So
if in fact the internet is still up.
Right. That's the other question. Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah. If you want to suppress dissent, you stop people from being able to communicate with each other. Yeah. Get your Starlings tested, everybody out there.
I'm a little angry. Can I?
Yeah.
Do you have more to say about?
No, that was it. That was it.
Nanophone that you're working on?
Please.
All right. But that'll be actually interesting for you to share a follow-up on another public show if in fact you get to interact, or even if you just do it remotely. And
I'm curious too if anybody else has had experience with that specifically, like setting this up, what's been the experience? Because I haven't. Yeah.
We'll bring you on for a segment.
Yeah. Sounds good.
If you don't want to be on for the whole show, you could be on for a segment.
Yeah, send us your recording or send us an email and we'll invite you on.
Oh, yeah, we could drop it in. Yeah, if they sent the recording.
Yep. So what's making you angry, Jerry, these days?
I'm a little angry. And I don't know if this has, and I discussed this with you privately, but I'm just going to bring it up on the show. So I don't know if the policies have changed, but most recently I ordered 2 different electronic devices from Amazon. The first one being AirPods Pro, and the other one was I was trying out a camera for my computer here, because right now I'm using the camera that's built into my MacBook Air M3. And one of the beauties of getting stuff from Amazon was they have such a liberal return policy. If you're an Amazon Prime subscriber, they take things back. Sometimes if you buy it from a third party where it's fulfilled by Amazon, but the seller is Joe from CyMac, you might have different return policies. Generally, if you stay with sold by Amazon, fulfilled by Amazon, you have no problems. So in both of these cases, the AirPods Pro were unopened. The camera was tested out. I returned both on separate days. One was actually a gift, and we had the people who were the recipients of the AirPods Pro. They already had them. They didn't need them, so they sent them back. And initially, I tried to get a label generated because that's typically the way I deal with it. And I know that you and I talked about that. You would have a slightly different way where you get the QR code and you bring it to your shipping location, and they just scan the code on your phone and they put it in a box and label it up and package it and send it off to Amazon. In this particular case, with both electronics, I could not get a label generated. The only way I could send it back to them was with a call tag. And so this immediately struck a nerve with me because this is not the way it's been, at least for me in the greater Connecticut area. So I'm thinking like, okay, there's a lot of fraud going on. Maybe they need to legitimize the purchase and the return so that I didn't hack into your account and I'm sending it to my house. And then if blah, blah, blah.
Sure.
So we had to do call tags. And then when I returned them, and one was returned as early as yesterday, the date for a credit was not even 5 to 7 days. They're taking almost like a 15-day window, including the weekend, to credit back my credit card from stuff sold by Amazon. I've never been contacted by them. Hey, you're buying too much stuff and you're returning too much stuff. I'm in a special watch category or something like that. So I think something has very fundamentally changed with the way Amazon is dealing with electronics and people committing fraud. So this is just like maybe a PSA. So just buyer beware. They're not telling me I can't return it. They're not adding a surcharge, at least from what I know, but there's large windows where they've received it, they've got your money, you don't have your credit back.
Yeah, that is a really important thing to be aware of. That they still have your money, and it definitely seems like they are waiting to check the return. I mean, based on the window. Whereas I've had some small, random little like a iPhone mount and things that I've tried where I returned it and I've opted for the credit to my Amazon account, just knowing obviously I'm going to spend money at Amazon at some point very soon probably, and just doing it that way. And that's been almost instantaneous.
Yeah,
I forget
same with us.
When you scan and I'll also use the QR code method. So I know you said you like to use the label method and then you can just drop it off, which is also very nice. Just it's already boxed up. You put it in the the mailing UPS Dropbox or whatever, but I'll use the QR code. And I think it's like when they scan that code is when I get my credit pretty much. But those were much smaller items. So you might be onto something with the electronics specifically there. That's what they're checking on more carefully.
Yeah. So anyway, it just adds a level of administration overhead because now I've got created an Apple Note where I'm like tracking these because it's like in both cases, it's $200. So $200 here, $200 there. I want to make sure I get the credit.
That you get.
I'm sure. Yeah. If I chase them down, they're like, oh, we're sorry we didn't credit you after you reach that return credit window. But I don't want to do that. I just want to get my credit back and move on.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. No, that's a good PSA. I've got another PSA actually about Adigy. I don't think I've shared this yet on the podcast that Live Desktop uses screen sharing. I use it all day long. It's fantastic. And I even do migrations using this method. So I connect using Live Desktop to the brand new Mac that's been enrolled in Adigy. I connect to the source Mac as well that's also enrolled in Adigy, and I handle the migration. I oversee it for the client. It's been working great for years for me. And now under Sequoia, it's a little bit different. So when you launch Migration Assistant and you authenticate, what I think is happening is that it's like relaunching Migration Assistant under a special setup user account. Live Desktop screen sharing goes back to the login window, showing the list of users, and it shows the setup user there logged in. So you think, oh, I'll just click the setup user. That doesn't work because you don't know the password because it's apparently just this Apple internal thing. So you just close the screen sharing window, reconnect using Adigy Live Desktop, now re-authenticate with the same user and just opt to share the screen of the logged in user, which is the setup user. Now you can see that session that is showing that Migration Assistant is running under this other user account. Minor change at first, it just tripped me up, and in case anybody's using that process, it does seem to work reliably and normally from that point. The reason I do it this way, as I've shared this recipe on the show before, is that I found that it's much better out of the box to complete the setup assistant by creating a temporary user account, get to the desktop, and then update the system, and then run Migration Assistant from the utilities folder on the system. It just works more reliably. I've almost never had a problem doing it that way. Sometimes coming from a very old system, migrating to the new system, like it'll either never finish spinning on one of the little sections, whether it's applications or whatever, or it will progress past that and start migrating, and then it'll basically eventually hang, or it's got 100,100 files to go. That was the number that I saw last time, and I'm like, that's a pretty perfect number, like 100,100 files. Maybe that's random, but maybe it's also just like some technical glitch, I don't know, bug or whatever. But it never progressed past that, and it keeps estimating more and more time. Meanwhile, the old system is like estimating a different amount of time. So I'm like, is it actually still going? So I let it go in that case for maybe another hour or two, and I just check back in later. Didn't make any progress. You click back, you quit or actually you just go back to the screen where you started the migration and restart it from there.
Sure.
And it worked. So there's no change. We didn't even reboot, but it just worked. So it just depends on usually the age of the source machine, but otherwise this is a pretty repeatable process just to make sure the new one is up to date and you run it from the utilities folder.
Nice. Just something came to mind when you talked about onboarding a new machine. And because you're exclusively remote, this is actually a unique question only to you. So you have a client who gets an iPhone, a new iPhone. Do you ever have them buy the $4 Lightning to, in most cases, the old phone was Lightning to USB-C cable and not do it over the air?
It's a great question. So when I migrated to my new phone from my 15 Pro Max, which was also USB-C, I used USB-C to USB-C for the first time, thinking, oh, I heard the guys on Accidental Tech podcast talking about transferring over the wire. And I thought, let me give that a try. But I made the mistake of using the cable they include, or I forget even what it wasn't. Maybe it wasn't included with my phone. It was just standard USB-C. So it wasn't
a data
2.
cable.
Yeah, it was. So therefore, it was like only USB 2, and that took a long time. And meanwhile, to charge the phone, you've got to use MagSafe. And then it wasn't keeping up with it was like getting down to the point where I'm like, I don't know, I might have 2% left of my battery when this finishes if my calculations are right. So it's but I don't bother doing all of that with clients because I find the direct transfer or restoring from iCloud backup tends to work wirelessly. I like the restore from iCloud backup better because it lets you get through the initial setup with them, like in kind of one go. And then the restore can happen in the background where their data is actually downloading behind the scenes versus tying up both phones until the process is complete when you're doing the direct transfer method where you just got to wait for that to finish. So,
yeah, I think it cuts both ways. I think there's merits to both. I think if the person doesn't have very much data on their phone, then it doesn't matter. But if you're talking about somebody who's got lots of photographs, you actually can get a little bump. I understand it's going to pull it down from iCloud anyway. I mean, it's 6 or 1/2 dozen of the other. With my wife's that I just transferred to the iPhone 16, we did use the Lightning to USB-C cable. And I would imagine USB-C to USB-C would even be faster with the proper data cable.
With the proper cable. Yeah, not what I...
Well, you think that if you do it with the cable, that once the phone is done, all the apps would be there, but that's not the case. Even though it's transferred all the data, the apps still are pulling down the latest version from the store. So you're going to still see your home screen and there's going to be all these darkened apps on the front portion of it. And you first look and you go, what's this? I use the cable. Everything should be here. But no, that's just not the way the migration works.
Right.
It always wants to make sure that it's got the latest app store version to put on the phone. And that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. Speaking of apps, though, in that process, I always find that part a little bit annoying where I have to manually open all my apps. So you get the new phone, you get it all transferred, everything's great and ready to go. But until you actually go in and open most of your apps, you won't see even notifications from those apps. Like many of them have to be signed in again. So you're not going to actually get push notifications until you go and sign into that app and it has been opened. So that's kind of part of the process. For me, at least, like I found that I was still looking at my old phone, seeing there's notifications happening there, like Unify or I don't know, any number of other things that are not happening on my new phone until I go on the new phone and say, oh, it's asking me to sign in again.
Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder if there could be a case made, and too bad Mr. Apple isn't here, if you were using the wire, if that wouldn't be the case. I don't know.
No, I did the wire. I did use, maybe if I use the right wire, the USB-C to USB-C with data transfer, like USB 3 speeds or whatever, versus I think in your case, the Lightning to USB-C, I think Lightning was only ever USB 2, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's not going to be that fast, but I'm thinking what you did, was it actually ever doing it with the cable because you had just a USB charging cable? It was maybe doing it over...
No, I'm pretty sure the process. I was wondering that
peer to peer. I'm saying over the air, but peer to peer.
Peer to peer. I think it actually would have been faster to go peer to peer than to use this USB 2.0 cable. Because effectively, if it's not a data cable, it's USB 2.
Yeah, that's a good point too.
Sure is what it is. So USB 2 is pretty slow, and so I think it was using the cable, and I think it was just really slow. But yeah, I just would think that process could be a little bit. I don't know. Maybe the Apple just should recommend, no, why don't you go in and open your apps? I guess they just figure people will go into their phone and start opening all the apps they use on a regular basis and passively solve that issue. But like it should be part of our process to deliberately go in and open the apps and make sure they're actually signed in. If you're sitting there with a client, of course, but if you're remote, it's a little harder.
That's really interesting. And it's not an edge case thing that you're bringing up. It's a legitimate question that I'm not sure we know the exact answer to, because I'm thinking that can't be the default behavior. I know it happened to you, and I'm not disputing that it did, but I wonder if there's any other way that you can do this and avoid that.
I was wondering that too, because I actually didn't think that was the case across the board in the past.
That's crazy.
Either. And there are certain apps where that's not the case, like where, and I'm not sure about the notification thing, but certain apps don't require you to log back in because they're saving a token on the device that basically
Right.
confirms it. And it's interesting to me, like Dropbox really doesn't care. Dropbox stayed signed in. Dropbox is,
Yeah.
so you've been transferring this token from, I don't know how many phones ago. Like, we've never asked you to sign in. I hope you're still the right person. We're just making a big leap of faith here. Like, maybe I want them. Really, I should go into my Dropbox account and review all my devices and say, this is not me, or this hasn't signed in 2 years. I'll remove it. But they're perfectly happy to keep you signed in. Authy is perfectly happy to keep me with my 2FA code. So now I've got two-factor codes happening on both the old and the new phone. It's not the something I have is now like two different things that I have, right? That's interesting to me that they don't make you do a process of backing up and restoring. I'm glad they don't, because I think it would trip more people up. Whereas Microsoft Authenticator requires you to do some kind of process. And I actually forget what it is for like my client accounts that I'm managing, which I still have to deal with.
That's interesting too, that you talk about Authy. So I exclusively use Authenticator or 1Password for the two-factor. Why do you still have a relationship with Authy? I know they're third party, and you could say, "Oh, I hate Microsoft," or that sort of thing. But I know you're not a Microsoft hater, Joe. And don't ask me why I have a screwdriver in my hand, but I do, and so I can't explain that. Maybe it's for my next job, but.
When every problem looks like a screw, you have
I gesticulate with the screwdriver all the time.
Yeah, I don't know. But with Authy, I was using them before 1Password ever.
As was I. Yeah.
2FA. Yeah. So I have a few still in there. I haven't bothered switching them over. That's all. Yeah.
Change your dance partner. That's what I'm saying.
I think I'm ready to do that at this point. But yeah, so Microsoft Authenticator, when you get a new phone, you have to take action on each account. And for me, it says, like on one of my clients, says action required. Scan the QR code provided by your organization to finish recovering this account. I'm like, my organization hasn't provided anything. I'm the organization. Like, what does that mean? So I actually don't know the process for doing that. And I'm surprised that I don't hear from more clients.
I don't either.
Who, you know,
right.
So it'll happen at some point.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Right. Yeah. I've got one more little gripe type thing, or not gripe, but so
peeve, a peeve,
yeah,
maybe
a peeve, sure.
From the old days.
Yeah, exactly. We haven't done peeves in a while.
No, we haven't.
I don't listen. I read John Gruber like almost every day, daringfireball.net. It's a great site for the new consultants out there who haven't discovered it yet. A lot of great Apple news and kind of tangentially related things about the industry and beyond. One of the things he said recently was, I really dislike the practice of replacing passwords with email, quote, magic links. Autofilling a password from my keychain happens instantly. Getting a magic link can take minutes sometimes, and even in the fastest case, it's nowhere near instantaneous. It's never usually minutes for me. It's like maybe a minute, maybe half a minute, something like that at worst. It's usually just 10 seconds or whatever to get an email. But to his point, I see where he's coming from. So he says, replacing something very fast, password autofill, with something slower is just a terrible idea. I agree with that. For people who actually prefer email magic links, it's fine as an option, but it shouldn't be the default, and it certainly shouldn't be the only way to sign into an account. So I agree with everything he's saying there. I also dislike that practice where they say, oh, we're passwordless. We've solved all your problems. We're just going to email you a link. The other reason I dislike that is because using a magic link doesn't usually invoke your password manager. So let's say you sign up for a company that does this practice of, we're going to send you a link. Every time you want to sign in, you just put in your email and then we send you the link. Since there's no field for password, they never ask for a password, your password manager is not invoked, and therefore it's not saving even the email address associated with this service. I've got more than one email address. So sometimes I'm not sure if I signed up under, like in the case of our show, is it my company email? Is it the info address for Command Control Power? Is it one of our other email addresses for different features? I have to remember, just try different ones. Or even internally, I've got several personal accounts. Like, when did I sign up? Was it 3 years ago? I might have used my Gmail. Now I might have used my me.com address or my new custom email address or whatever. I have to remember that now or manually put it in. So to me, that's just another little edge case where you don't want to train, like you want the industry to be training people to use the built-in password managers, which now are also moving toward passkeys, which are, I think, good for people in general, but also have some little asterisks next to them. But you want to train people to use those. You don't want to put them through this alternative process that doesn't invoke the password manager. So that's my issue with that. I thought he had some good thoughts on that, and that's my little 2 cents.
So this is interesting. So I've never heard the phrase magic link for starters. And my question, is it developed by the same people who came up with the magic 8 ball? That's my first
Probably, yeah.
question. But
It's a good.
and then I got slightly distracted because Ashley walked by the
I
screen,
know.
and
I think
then
there was a ghost
I
behind me. It's
I
almost
actually
Halloween.
I actually
So,
stopped
yeah.
listening to you. But what web services are doing this right now?
We use StreamYard for broadcasting the show. StreamYard does this.
And we get the magic password, the magic
Yeah, you get a magic link. So it's
link.
basically clients are used to this because I forgot my password, right? Okay, fine, just put in your email address and then we'll send you a link and then now you're signed in. Now you're at the point where you can choose a new password. Basically, this just takes that kind of workflow and it makes it the default. It's like put in your email address, we'll send you a link.
Yeah, no, I realized.
I can manage
Yeah.
passwords. I don't need a magic link. I have a magic password autofill feature.
That's really fuzzy.
Yeah.
And strikes me as in 2024 not very secure.
No.
Yeah, susceptible to a man-in-the-middle attack very easily through email.
Exactly. So not a good practice. Yeah.
How do you explain to clients passkeys, the Nana version of that? I'm logging to Google, but they're asking me if I want to use passkeys. What's that?
Depending on the client's level of sophistication,
let's pretend they're unsophisticated.
Yeah, I would probably say I recommend doing that.
Okay.
Like I wouldn't explain what it is or why or whatever, but I would say if they offer a passkey, then I recommend clicking OK or whatever it is, click continue. So let me take a step back and explain it to the more sophisticated client.
And what brings up the question, and I want to hear your answer, is the fact that I might be using already 1Password. And so that's working fine for me. And I'm getting this annoying other pop-up asking me about using the passkey. What should I be doing here?
So then the answer is what I tell them when they say, I show them iCloud keychain and then they say, I've got 1Password. Should I? Oh, it's a mess. If you've got it in one and it autofills from there, then the other one's going to ask, do you want to save this password? I would say, yes, why not? Like, why not have it in both? I don't know. Normally, I would recommend against a redundancy of like information that needs to be dealt with later. If I thought this was going to create a big pile that somebody's going to need to manually like deduplicate or something, I probably would discourage this. But because it's relatively simple data, like it's an email and a password, it probably will deduplicate automatically if you ever say to iCloud Keychain, yes, please import from 1Password or whatever, if you want to consolidate into one place. I think they could handle the duplication, I assume. And if you have two different passwords for the same account, you just figure out which one works and you delete the other one. It's not a big problem. So I just keep it simple and I say, if you've got it in one and you let it fill in from there, let it save in the other one it asks, fine. Same question comes up with passkeys, because like you said, they might say, I've got 1Password. I've already got the autofill. Like it says, do you want to save a passkey? Should I do that? Sure, why not? Because it's going to make it easier for them to log in later. I think the only caveat there is that they do need to be using a password manager. Like there's no way to look up what the passkey, quote unquote, is on one device and then utilize it on the other device. It needs to sync. Like there needs to be a backing system of syncing passkeys to make them useful on more than one device. So they have to be using iCloud Keychain to be able to use a passkey. The edge case they might get into is they might have 1Password installed on their Mac, but not on their phone. And 1Password might ask, do you want to save a passkey for Amazon or whatever? And if they say yes, use a passkey with Amazon, and that's in the scope of 1Password on their Mac, they may not be able to log in using the passkey on their iPhone. I think they can still use the password, though. I don't think passkeys like kind of supersede passwords, right? So like you can still log in with a password. You just also have a passkey. So it's still like an evolving system, essentially. And again, like both iCloud Keychain and 1Password can like save a passkey. And if you have both implemented, like they'll both ask you which one do you want to save it in or whatever. So that's still evolving. But the benefit of passkeys, again, for the sophisticated user, is that there's no password that can get you into trouble. There's no ability for you to say, let me look up my passkey and type it in this hacker version of the website that's a phishing attempt. There's no way to provide a passkey to the wrong server, essentially, because it's all automatic.
Yep.
But to me, that's already the benefit of a password manager, because if you have a password manager, then what I explained again to the slightly more sophisticated clients is that one of the benefits of the password manager is that it's going to fill in the password for you. And it's only going to fill in the password for you on the correct website. It's not going to be fooled like a human would be fooled to type in their Bank of America password to Bank of America misspelled or whatever, right? So it's going to know the difference. So that's the same benefit that you get with passkeys, but you already have that benefit if you're using a password manager. So it basically takes the ability away from the person to get themselves into trouble.
Yeah, that's a really good point, that about a password manager will only autofill on the correct website. The other thing, and I'm sure you've experienced this, I've got a user I could think of top of mind. She's not using 1Password, she's using Dashlane. And we've had situations where we're in Dashlane, the password's wrong. We're in the passwords app for Apple, and that one's wrong. And now we're looking in the Google Chrome password manager, and that's the right one. And then you have to go in there and fix the other ones. And they understand what's going on, but at the same time, they're like, how come it's putting in the wrong password? And this is a completely different system. And it is a hot mess for some of my clients. It's a big hot mess because you're only there for a little bit, like you're doing a remote session, or you're only there for a short period of time if you're physically on site. And you can't say to them, look, let me spend a couple hours with your computer and let me just go through everything in the Google Chrome password manager app, and let me look at the Apple pass, because it would take time to do this and put them back on the right track. So you leave and you just hope for the best till the next time this comes up and you're on site and you can't log into the website and you don't know why. And then you start going to all these password vaults to find the right one.
Completely. Yeah, I've been there. And it's, again, like you said, it's a hope for the best kind of situation, because you know that there's no amount of time that they're willing to pay for, that you're willing to spend, that they actually, even if they were able to pay and spend the time and money, that would result in them fully understanding all the nuances of all this stuff, even just with passwords, let alone everything else in the computer that could trip them up. So yeah, some of it is a hope for the best. I will say you can import from Chrome into Safari, into the password manager, essentially, right? So you can go File, Import from Google Chrome, and you can select passwords to import. You could do that. It doesn't mean that it's certainly not going to like figure out which is the right password. So you're going to bring in a bunch of bad data and the good data, and they're still going to be stuck with, if that one doesn't work, try the other one. I have situations, my own systems, I go to log in. It's like almost every time I go to, I forget, there's certain sites that I use all the time, Repair Shopper for my stuff, Watchman Monitoring, and my bank. Those three at various times have persistently recommended. I once saved one guy who worked for me their login for Repair Shopper so I could go in and fix something for them or whatever. It's presenting that one every time as the top result. I'll just probably delete it at some point and save myself the trouble. But every time it comes up, can you not just learn that I always select a different one? Why are you every time telling me they're the last one I would ever choose, let alone for my bank or for, it's gonna, I don't know. It's just so frustrating. Yeah. I'm like, I don't even have an explanation for myself, let alone if a client asks me that. So
it's every time I write an email to Mary and Apple Mail writes an email to Mari. And Mari has been removed from all my contacts. I curse the day I ever did business with Mari because it's completely effed up my life. Right. You know, because I can never write to Mary. I'm always writing to Mari, and I have to go in and autocorrect.
It's almost, we've joked 100 times in the show, but like you joked recently about the pre-intelligent, like the pre-Apple intelligent, and how it's not intelligent, it's pre-intelligent. Like,
no, instead of AI, it's Apple imbecile, not Apple
imbecile. There you go. Exactly. I was writing you back I think I used Siri just last week, and I'm writing, "Hey Jerry, blah 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 blah," and Siri sees your name in the thread.
Oh yeah.
And I say it out loud, and the more common spelling is with a J, and it gets it right the first time, and it's all transcribing everything I'm saying, and then it changes the Jerry with a J to the Jerry with a G.
I've seen this.
No, just quit while you're ahead. Why are you changing anything? What are you doing? And this kind of stuff happens all the time. Sometimes as I'm typing, I type instead of I'm a bad typist, I think. Instead of typing THE for the word the, which is the number one most common word in the English language, I sometimes hit RHE, okay, and then a space. And my Mac will very helpfully fill in the entire phrase rheumatoid arthritis. Okay. So I'm like writing an email and I'm like, click the button, blah, blah, blah. And it's click rheumatoid arthritis button. I'm like,
oh, wow.
I'm like, has anyone ever benefited from that suggestion? Oh man,
that's not one of your saved abbreviations, Joe. Rheumatoid arthritis.
It's like almost deliberately bad. It's like somebody at Apple is like trolling us. Like, how long will you suffer the Apple imbecile pre-AI version of this stuff? So I'm just hoping this is better with the Apple Intelligence.
I go through the same thing. I have a client who's the Jerry with the dog Jack, the Mastiff, who almost took off my arm.
Yeah.
And Jack's dead now, thank goodness.
Oh, no.
But she's Jerry with a G, and I'll write to her, and it'll be Jerry with a J, and then it's going back and forth, and it just can't get it right. But and how about this one's gone away? But you and I both agreed on this. There was several years ago where if you wrote the word for, F-O-R, it would always change to fir, a fir tree.
Oh, sure.
F-I-R.
Yeah.
It's F-U-R, F-O-R. All right, I'll give you that. Maybe I'll give you
for F-I-R is like the least likely thing you meant to type. Yeah.
Unless you're a woodsman.
Yeah.
And then
I've screenshotted this one before where it will be Thanksgiving Day and I'll be typing a text and I'll be like, happy space, and then it's like suggesting Father's Day. Like what? No. Try again. I'm in the US. It's a corporate holiday. Oh man.
Apple imbecile.
Yeah, it's just so bad. And I don't know about you, but I'm finding the typing I'm struggling to type on this. I don't know if it's because I switched from the iPhone Pro Max to the Pro and the screen is slightly different, slightly smaller, but I'm just struggling again. And I think if you could go back, if I could erase myself typing on the very first iPhone versus now, even with all the autofill, correction, suggestions, like auto completion, I think I'd be faster on the first iPhone. There's a chance that I'd be faster. So I don't know if this is really helping anybody, some of this stuff.
Probably not.
It could just be me. I don't know. I've been an iPhone user since day one. Maybe that's less of the common case. Like maybe somebody getting an iPhone today from scratch is just doing great with typing. I don't know, but
maybe when the cobwebs of our Apple ID, all this data is hidden somewhere, and that's what it's drawing upon. Because I like the Mari thing. I can't. There was this woman named Mari Prentice, and
she's not in your contacts. You don't have her in any of your.
No, I blew her out like two years ago when this started to happen. I'm thinking, okay, I know, or previous recipients, I know. I'm just going to remove I did scorched earth on Mari Prentice. I can't shake her from Apple Intelligence.
Again, and you'd think, wouldn't the intelligent part be what's the most common? If somebody says Mary, it's probably M-A-R-Y. Like,
how about because Mary's in the email that I'm responding to?
It's even better, right? But see, that's the thing that Apple doesn't know. You said like maybe it's because they have it in some database of this dossier on you about everybody. But I think that actually the problem is like they don't have a lot of this stuff because of privacy and all that. And there's ways of doing whatever differential privacy. I don't know how they're solving it with some of the new Apple Intelligence features, but it's supposed to know. You'd think the very first thing it should know is who I'm writing to in my text message thread. And there's two people. And it's, if I say Jerry, I probably mean the same spelling that's in the thread I'm typing in. Like, so, but I think that Apple is like, again, blinders. We don't want to know this stuff because we're all about your privacy. And it's this badge of honor.
Yeah, but where is Mari coming from? Where is Jerry with a G? coming from, which is
that's an
less
even better
common.
question, right? That it's almost like, again, deliberately bad. Like, where is it getting? Because I have one relatively recent contact, Jerry with the G. I don't even know where it was doing that before I knew this person. I don't think there's anybody in my contacts, Jerry with the G. And the Mary with an I or whatever, so where would you go? I don't know where you would look for that besides just the contacts app.
Yeah, it's all this BS is on device is what it is.
Yeah,
So,
I know. I don't know if I would make that trade-off, be a little bit less privacy conscious, Apple, and be a little smarter if you need to. I don't want you to go all full Google on me, like where you just know everything more than I do about myself. Like you've got every email, every thought I've ever had is probably in Google, and they really they do a lot with it. I think that they're better at knowing what you mean because they know about you.
all my Chat GPT, I'm signed into the free account, but that's what I'm using. And I just turned it on the beta, the 18.2 that I just downloaded today. And a lot of my business correspondence, it's writing my emails for me after so who cares?
What do you mean, who cares? Like you're with the privacy wise?
It's not super sensitive. Yeah, I'm fine with it. It's not super sensitive data. What are you going to take from me? We don't put sensitive stuff in emails anyway. I'm not going to be putting passwords or sensitive information about minor children or anything like that in an email typically.
Yeah. The concern with privacy is also storing the data, collecting the data. I don't care if Apple briefly knows that I have a friend named Jerry with the J, or whatever like that. It's like it can know it just in the time it takes to put it in the transcription. They don't need to store that. As long as they're not storing that data long term, then it seems like there could be a balance in there where they know the data, they have access to the information, they just don't store it. That's all I ask, really.
Yeah, maybe some sort of in 24 to 48 hours, that data disappears from our servers or something like that.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to Apple Intelligence. I think I will be a great customer of some of those features, like being able to utilize ChatGPT to rewrite some of these emails like you're describing. I will use it more because it's built in than having to copy the text and then ask the question to rewrite it or whatever, and then copy and paste back again. I think it would just be, it'll be more accessible to me, so I'll use it more. So I'm looking forward to it. I don't mind that they're rolling it out slowly over time, piece by piece. I think it's a little funny from the marketing side because people are rolling their eyes like all these things are promoting Apple Intelligence and yet it's not even there yet. But that's fine. Do it carefully, do it safely, make it work well from the beginning, and I'll be happier than if they just put it in beta on 0.0, whatever. Yeah.
A lot of good things to think about here.
Yeah.
Who knew?
Who knew? Not Siri. Siri didn't know much of anything and still doesn't. But I'm looking forward to seeing what Siri knows under Apple Intelligence. So looking forward to hearing more from you on that in the meantime, and then hearing about it from Apple once it goes live. But this has been a good conversation, just the two of us, and wish you all the best for good turnout from these client engagements and more uptake with things. We just talked to Tim Nyberg about the kind of client engagement and effective techniques for getting clients to respond. For me, it's just a matter of the amount of contacts. It's just putting it out there constantly, you get 10% back maybe. I think there's a lot of people out there just throwing their hands up and saying, it's an election year, I don't know what's going on. And clients are saying the same thing, talk to me in a month kind of thing. Good stuff. All right. I'll talk to you in a week. And thanks everybody for listening to another episode of Command Control Power.
Of customers of all kinds.
Am I on the cloud?
Joe spins his deeply detailed yarns all the time.
I have a whole story about this.
Sam